Well, welcome everybody to the second Sunday of Easter. This is, again, a season. Eastertide is a season of 49 days that culminates on the 50th day, the 8th Sunday, with Pentecost. So 49 days, 7 weeks of just celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, and here we are doing that. And today, this is a really good day for us on the calendar and otherwise to come together to discuss sort of family business and family matters, and to talk about where it is we are as a parish. So every year in our bylaws, we've agreed to and committed to have something called an annual meeting as a parish. And because of the circumstances around Father Brian Poppy's departure at the end of last year, diocesan details, all of that, it's something that we'd normally like to do maybe a little bit earlier in the year, but got pushed to this date. But it's good because we have a lot of substantive things to talk about around the diocese, around Rector search, around staff and council. So really excited about it. It's important. So hunker down. We've got a little bit of time here, and we've altered our liturgy to help accommodate that. So to start, first things first, if you've got a print copy of the booklet, great. Many thanks to Dean Moyer for putting that together and for coordinating the information and design and getting that printed. If you don't have a copy and you'd like to see one, you can, if you've got a device, QR code will take you straight to that PDF. I think it's a single-page continuous PDF that you can see, and then we'll walk in the order of that booklet is the order that we'll talk in today. So that should be a good guide for you. On our next slide, I want to kind of get us into, before we get into demographics, I do want to center us on what is Church of the Resurrection. Who is Church of the Resurrection? So Church of the Resurrection is an Anglican church in Flower Mound, Texas, that exists to make disciples. And we make disciples who are rooted, who are restful, and who are relational. These are 3 R's that we have used for a long time. And what do those words mean? Well, in a transient culture, in a culture that's kind of afloat and not really sure of identity, not really sure of purpose, not really sure of meaning, we want to be rooted. We want to be rooted in God himself. We want to be rooted in the gospel of Jesus Christ. We want to be rooted in the Word of God. And so we want to be a rooted people here, and that's a character that we want to define our people, a rootedness, and even a geographical and relational rootedness, one where, hey, you may be living here for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 40 years, but no matter what, we unpack the boxes, we hang pictures on the wall, we care for our neighbors, we get to know people, we put down roots for as long as the Lord has us somewhere. While you're here, you be here, right? And so that's our commitment, is to be rooted. Relational, in a culture that's really transactional, where there's like McDonald's service going on around relationally, like you just kind of drive by relationships, how you doing, everything surface level. Like we want to be relational in the sense that we want to be really committed to a specific group of people. So this goes with rootedness. Being relational means that we want to prioritize friendship, spiritual friendship with one another, our families, being parents, our kids. We want to prioritize those relationships in our spiritual formation. So we're not just doing programs, there's not just consumerism, there's not just content for you to get, but there's all that's happening in the context of community and relationship, right? Rooted, restful, relational. Restful is second. In a culture that is really, really busy, really hurried, really frenetic, increasingly connected all day, every day, we want to be restful. And we actually believe that's not just like a really nice therapeutic thing that we want for ourselves just because we don't want to be anxious. It's actually something God commands for us. It's called Sabbath, Shabbat. It means ceasing from strife. And in fact, in Christ, if you're rooted in Christ, you don't have to strive anymore. You can be restful. And that bleeds over into every other aspect of life. That's how we deal with our finances. It's how we deal with even just how we talked about with relationships. We're not in a hurry to try and like posture or whatever at work or to get in the right circles of friends. No, we can be totally at rest and secure and safe in the kingdom of God as we go about our daily lives, being restful, to be non-anxious, to be not in a hurry. Why? Because we trust in the one who has us. So those are the 3 R's that guide our church. And then we do this through this metaphor of table. this metaphor of table. And this is something that through the pandemic was really sort of ripped away from us in a big way. And it's something that we're still trying to relearn here, and that needs some gasoline poured on. But tabling is a biblical concept. It's a biblical metaphor. And it's table fellowship is literally meal sharing meals together, sitting around a table together, sharing stories, getting to know one another. It's really hard, well, unless you go to Thanksgiving with your family, it's really hard to argue around a table with someone while sharing a meal. Right? There are contexts where that happens, but it's way easier to be mad at someone and to type invectives over the internet. It's way harder to do that when you're eating with them. When you hear their story, when you hear, oh, so you came from X, and oh, your mom wasn't there, your dad wasn't there, or oh, you had a really great experience here, and that's why that makes sense to me. There's context, there's relationship. It's tabling. So we want to table with God. So first table. We want to table with one another. Second table. And actually, we want to table in the world with the world on their turf. So Christ hosts us in this intimate relationship. We host one another in community, and we're inviting others in. But then we also want to be tabling in relationship with those who don't know Jesus on their turf, where they host us, where we're on mission in their homes and in their lives, which is slow, patient, difficult work. Because people are messy. You're messy. So are your neighbors. So are your coworkers. So being at the table with someone is a way in which we go about doing life. And it's through tabling that we actually will find ourselves becoming, if we table in Christ, that we're becoming more rooted, more restful, more relational. Does that make sense? So that's who we are as Church of the Resurrection. We're an Anglican parish who makes disciples who are rooted, restful, and relational by means of the first and second and third tables. So we could talk about that for a long time. That's all we'll say for right now. So I wanted to give you an update a little bit on our parish. So we have a attendance graphic here that I want to show you. So this is kind of the trajectory of average attendance. So obviously through 2020, hovering around 80. That would have been, this is all in-person numbers. We don't count streams because that's really impossible to do accurately with views and all that. But yeah, obviously through the pandemic in 2020, in 21, people were out. And there were a lot of parishes, a lot of churches that just didn't recover from that. A lot of places shut down. A lot of places are still maybe at a 30 to 20% decrease over what they were before the pandemic. And I can tell you, as someone who led family ministries before the pandemic, like that the momentum that you may have had in ministry and relationally or whatever, it was just completely halted. There was a lot of leadership energy that was just gone, and it felt like starting back over after the pandemic. But what we can see at Resurrection, you'll hear this in the financial update, we are actually trending up, and we are above, as a parish, above the attendance that we were before the pandemic. Just above, not like crazy above, but just above. And so there's been continual return to church. There's been people who have moved here from out of town. Has anyone moved here in the last 2 years to the area? Yes, we have a handful. Raise your hand if you're new to the church since 2020. Hi, raise it high. You guys see that? And more who aren't here. Raise your hand if you were here before 2017. Another half. So you see, we have a very unique setup. I just said within the last 2 to 3 years, are you new? And were you here more than 5 years ago? And then there's everyone in between. I'm in between, by the way. I came in 2017. So you have half this congregation is like old timers, we can call it, 7 years if that's old. And then you've got, I don't mean by age, I'm talking about attendance, right? All right, so don't. And then you got about half this congregation, honestly, that's relatively new. And so there's a cultural, missional identity dynamic there that's the task right now for us as a parish, is like, okay, what's next? How do we re-galvanize with this new makeup of people around a common identity and a common mission? And like naming that and going about that's what we're doing. Excuse me. That's what, honestly, 2023 is about, is figuring out what's next for this parish in light of all the change and all the mix-up that's happened in the last 3 years. So the demographics, important. We can go deeper into that at some point, but not right now. The next graph, if you'll pull that up, talks about membership age breakdown. It's a little not misleading, but there's some missing information here in that we see Our 0 to 15-year-olds, 20%. So that means like youth, children, youth is actually a good percentage of our congregation as far as like membership goes. And then young adults, obviously people go off to college. We're a suburb where a lot of young families live, so there's not a huge representation there. And then a lot of adults. That big number there, that 71%, is skews towards the like 50s and up. But we have a solid representation of people in their 30s and 40s who are young families with kids, who are single, and it's a pretty interesting spread. So I think that what I would say is in my work, looking at our community, looking at our church, we pretty accurately represent our community as far as how we're broken down. We're not just like all a bunch of people in their 30s with kids or 40s with the kids. We're not just all over 60. There's this intergenerational spread, which is super healthy and really, really good for everybody. And it's been the intention for a long time for Mesa groups to be intergenerational for a lot of reasons. My Mesa group has some young families, has older people who are single, and it is awesome. There's friendship, there's wisdom that's shared there, so we want to keep that. So that's sort of our who we are demographically. Like, who are you sitting next to? And you can just look around and see that there's a good amount of age diversity, people from all over. If we could look at geography, that would be fascinating too. But we're in a really good place with a lot of potential for a great future together. So I'm excited for that. So with that, I need to move into introducing you to some leadership. So you know a lot of these people already. But if you're newer or if you don't know what they do, I'm going to try and summarize that for you. I do know that it's really common. I get this. So what do you do like during the week? Man, it's one of the most humbling things in the world. I get asked fairly regularly by kids and our children and our teenagers, so is this your full-time job? It's like this is what you do like for money? Yep, I know. And I tell them straight up, I am 0% productive to capitalist society. So take that how you will. Yes, I have to go to God about that all the time, and I'm working on it. So here we go. This is our staff. If you are staff, please stand up, and you can see them around the room. So we have a variety of different roles here. I'll start with, in the back, Dean Moyer, Executive Director of Parish Life, which is a really fancy title. That means he oversees a lot. He does oversee a lot, and I wrote down a lot of the things that he does. I mean, the main buckets sort of water that he's carrying. Number one, staff oversight. Dean does a lot of staff oversight. So everyone else here that's standing, he's helping oversee. I work primarily with Courtney over family ministries. We'll talk about that. But the rest of the staff, Dean is helping supervise and direct. And the second big one is Mesa. He runs, if you're in our Mesa group or you're a leading Mesa group, he develops all the curriculum for that, assembles our booklet, organizes people, places people in Mesa groups, does a lot of work around that. And then sort of on the operations standpoint, so we've got staff, Mesa, and then operations. Dean is helping us in our relationship and our communication constantly with the YMCA around the logistics of this place. You'd be surprised how convoluted and complicated it can be to work with another organization just to like meet in space. So, hey, can we come on Good Friday, and what does that all entail? Can we have a sign out front or not? What does the town say about that? All the run around with all of that takes someone's time, and Dean is helping us do that. Things like the booklet that you're holding, Dean compiled all that information, and he put all that in there, produced that for us, and put it together. So there's an operational side of what he does that is more of the administration and oversight of things in the parish. So really thankful for you, Dean. Thank you for your leadership. And I'd love to go into the story of how you arrived here, but it was really a God thing that he was moving here to be in your family at the same time as we had an opening and a situation with Brian, and it was just a perfect fit, and God was obviously bringing him here to help lead and be a strong voice here. So thank you. Next, Candace. I'll do Candace. Candace oversees the director of communications and connections. So that's in the title. So communications, social media, email, all that stuff, communicating through receiving phone calls, all the communications aspects of our church, Candace is overseeing. And then also scheduling all volunteers. If you're new to the church, she probably got your information. She was probably really excited to see you, right? She's 100% a people person, is incredible at that. Like in her sleep, she's connecting people, loves doing that, and got you either in a Mesa group or in a Sunday brunch or whatever. But she's connecting people, and then there's the element of hospitality. So like whenever we have an event, and she actually has work experience in the corporate world in hospitality and restaurant, has a degree in that from Oklahoma State, even though you're an Oklahoma University fan. This is one of those things about her, don't ask. It's not logic, she just loves Oklahoma. But yeah, so when she's like organizing events for us, like she's putting all that together, really great at that, gets stuff done, and I love that. So thank you for all your work in those areas. You guys can sit down once I've introduced you. I'll go back, Clancy, to you since you're all the way back there. Clancy, all the way in the back, who's standing up, holding the cup. He is over all of our media. So we have a live stream. If you're sick, if you're home, we're obviously not trying to do like a television ministry to millions of people across the globe. We're not like in Spanish yet or in other countries, but it's a service that we're doing that started in the pandemic, and we went, hey, this is actually a really good idea for people who need a stream at home. And so he's putting that together for us, setting that up every week. He also oversees our website and oversees our slides and everything that you see up here. So he's preparing our content for our liturgy when that changes each season, putting that in there. Really thankful for you and your time, Clancy. Thank you. Courtney oversees children's ministry in an interim role. She'll be here the rest of the semester, but she is a awesome helper and addition to what we do in children's ministry. Schedules all our volunteers, prepares all our curriculum, makes sure that our ministry's safe, our safety protocols are in place, and is overseeing that on a weekly basis, part-time basis. So thank you, Courtney, for your work there. Ann Brock, been here since the dawn of time, since the dawn of the church, I mean, and you are the most efficient, on the ball, detail-oriented person in the world, which is why it's great that you're an accountant. She's like, hey, David, do you have that receipt? And I was like, I think I did. Here you go. She is incredible, has been an accountant for us for a long time, really skilled at what she does, and helps manage our books and keep us all straight away. So thank you, Ann, for doing that. I think that's everyone except for Cindy. Last but certainly not least, Cindy Matthews. Cindy Matthews is a volunteer staff and has been for a very long time as well, and oversees all of our frontal stuff, so our altar guild stuff. She's overseeing making sure that our communion stuff is set every week. She launders my vestments because I'm a sweaty man, and she makes sure that it's good. She has us all straight away back there, super organized. Talk about like, if you have a task list, she will destroy that task list. I mean, she's just an animal. She will knock it out. Anyway, love that about her, and she has been here for a long time, been so faithful. We love you. Thank you so much for your work here. So that is, and then me. I'm the interim rector here. That means I'm currently standing in as the lead priest in charge, as we continue our search for an external candidate as a future permanent rector for Church of the Resurrection. I'm up here preaching, leading service, and if you need anything in your personal life, call me, email me. I would love to be with you and meet with you and help you through whatever it is going on in your life. So, lastly, Jared Grice, he's not here. He oversees our music. He's doing a lot of work in setting liturgical pieces to music for us, trying to bring contemporary feel to the liturgy while also being connected to the historic liturgy. So really excited for that and love him. He's a dear friend. Okay, next, council. I'll go through this one really quickly. Our leadership council is nominated and elected from inside the church body and represents the church body in the leadership of the church. So if you're on the leadership council, would you please stand up? Thank you. So, you're all on the one side of the room. Great. So, Ken Metcalf, Donna Jordan, Brenda Gribben, John Malden, Jeremy Hansen, Ryan Perkins. These 6 people give, especially in this time as we're in transition, dealing with everything they're about to talk about, a lot of time. This is a working group. They're not just getting together to make decisions, but give a lot of their time and attention towards helping this church get to a new future. And they all bring all their expertise from their past, in their present, into what they do. And so some are way more involved in mission or in numbers or in the diocesan stuff or whatever. There's various different tasks that need to be done that require different levels of involvement, and it's a great team with a lot of balance, with different gifts and interests. So I'm really thankful for you guys. You guys do a great job. You're on the ball, not asleep at the wheel, really working hard, for real. And I'm not just saying that. So thank you so much for doing that. That'll be it for now. We're not going to do a personal introduction for each of you. That's it. So if you have any questions about any of that, I'm happy to receive emails about those things. So just feel free to email me, and if you have any questions about specific people in leadership, what we're doing, vision, mission, reach out. So that concludes my portion, which was supposed to be about half that length. I apologize. But now we'll talk about, I think it's 2022 end of year financials, and probably an update on the first quarter. Okay, thank you.
So I'm John Malden. I'm the treasurer, and I'm on the leadership council. And my wife, Emily, and I have been here with our 4 kids for 6 years or so now. So I'll be mainly focusing on the year-end 2022 financials, just hitting the highlights. There's more detail in this handout, but I'm sure you'll appreciate I won't go into too much detail here. And I do work in corporate banking, so it's tough for me not to go into all the details because that's fun. So anyway, the first graph is really just summarizing our total income and expenses for the last 3 years. And I will note that there's some adjustments in these numbers, mainly to 2021 when we sold our old building. We had some PPP loans that were forgiven and some other one-time things. So for the sake of an apples to apples comparison, there's some adjustments in these numbers. But I think, and as you've heard, as I do quarterly financial updates, there's not really a lot new to this story. As you'll see, our income has clearly grown coming through and out of COVID, such that we, had a healthy operating surplus last year, which is a blessing. I can affirm what David said about, it's not really the norm right now for parishes to be doing better than they were before COVID, and we really are. The vast majority of our income is giving and tithes from all of you, and that's ahead of pre-COVID levels. So that's just a blessing. And as David said, it's not just older members; it's new members too, and we're all giving generously. And I just want to say thank you for that. And we've talked in the past about about trying to aim for $500,000 annual budget as we move into a new building project. We haven't talked about that recently. That was a goal from a few years ago, but we're on track and heading toward that number, which is incredible. And even as our cash expenses were budgeted to increase last year, we still ended the year with a surplus. So in comparing our expenses to budget, we came in about 3% above budget on expenses, but really a good chunk of that is the 10% tithe we give to the diocese. So as our giving increases, the tithe increases. So that's a great thing. That's the category it's okay to exceed budget in, for sure, because that means our giving was very healthy. And then also there were some reimbursements for family ministry expenses related to our youth missions trip. So really, if you adjust these items out, we were actually a couple percentage points below budget on expenses. So we did a good job with that. And so I think we'll move on to the next graph. And this just shows cash and debt balances. And I've added January here because we sold the Shady Oaks property in January, so I thought it was appropriate to update that. So, and so as you can see, we have over $2.2 million in total cash balances right now, and zero debt. And really, the increases, we had a net proceeds of almost $1.7 million from the Shady Oaks sale, and so that was a big source cash there. And actually, in 2 slides, I'll show the detail on how the cash is designated, which I think is actually probably more important. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Yeah, before I get there, the 2023 budget. So back in October, November, we finalized and approved our 2023 budget. So given that our giving and income has continued to grow since then, I'm pretty confident saying our budget's pretty conservative. You know, we should end the year with another surplus, and I think that gives us flexibility to continue to invest in local missions and other ministry initiatives that Ryan will be talking about some of that later. And then we have some new things going on. So we're fortunate to have a surplus and a healthy budget to work from to grow some of those ministry areas. And let's see. So yeah, our total budget expenses are only about 2% higher than our expenses were last year. You know, staffing expenses makes up 2/3 of our budget. It's probably not surprising. And that is budgeted to increase over last year again. But I will tell you that given, you know, the rector search and some moving pieces there, we really just used like a range of scenarios to come up with that staffing budget number and kind of used a high figure on that range for the budget. So as we move through the year, things will shake out in that category. You know, we'll probably end up below the budgeted number, but we just given you know the transition that we're in, that's how we approach the budget for that. And then also, you know, again, the diocese tithe is based on our total giving, which has continued to grow since we set our budget. So we'll be above budget in that area again, but that's a good thing. The rest of our budget isn't materially different than this past year. You know, we budget by category: church programming, family ministries, we have operations, and some other categories. Those are all fairly steady from last year, but again, given the solid, you know, position we're in, I think we'll continue to invest in missions and some other areas like Ryan will talk about. So there's more detail in the back of the handout on the budget that you can review, and you can always come and ask me more specific questions too. So the last thing I'm going to touch on, yeah, this is the more detailed cash breakout by designation. So as you can see, the bulk of the cash that we have currently is in the Shady Oaks Campaign Fund, with you know, realizing that equity from the property as we sold it, and obviously that purchase in the beginning was supported by very generous campaign giving by many of you, and for those of you that contributed to our last campaign, which we launched in 2018. You know, I have sent out a letter recently, just as we sold the property. I just want to make sure all donors of the last campaign were fully aware of kind of our change in our building plan and the sale of that property. And just, you know, to kind of formally, you know, say that we're renaming that campaign fund as just Church of the Resurrection Building and Property Fund. And so we continue to receive contributions to the campaign fund, which is great. I mean, we had, I think it was 9,100 last year in campaign contributions, which is awesome. And we'll continue to designate those for our future building plan. Yeah, and as those come in, we'll continue to designate it that way. You can also see we have a capital projects fund, $325,000. That's mostly proceeds from the sale of the Morris Road building, our old building, that we set aside for capital projects. The bulk of that, I expect, you know, will be used for future building plan as well. So those are kind of capital funds that remain designated and separate from operations. And then we have an operating cash reserve and a healthy operating cash balance. And so those two combined represent almost 6 months of monthly expenses for us. So, I mean, right now we don't need the reserves, right? But that's a very healthy rainy day fund in the event we need that to support operations. So I just, from a cash reserves perspective, I think we're in a really good spot. And again, generous giving has supported that, and I really appreciate that. We all do. Okay, so I think I've gotten off script, but I covered everything. So thank you all. As always, my email address and my phone number, you can find them in the directory in the church app. Feel free to reach out to me, grab me after service now or in the future, anytime you have any detailed questions about the finances. I'd be glad to answer any questions. So thank you, and I will hand it off to April's next, right? Yeah, April with our property update.
Good morning, everyone. My name is April Gilley, and my husband Kevin and I have been members here since 2021. Right after the pandemic ended, we found our way here and have been glad to be here. You may be wondering, why am I giving the property update today? So I have been assisting for the last couple of months with project management for the building effort, so that's why I'm here to give the update today. I have my notes as well, so I'll try to stay on script also. Quick recap maybe for anyone new, or just kind of a refresher as far as where we are with our building plans. So the Church of the Resurrection, we are partnering with the YMCA, Cross Timbers YMCA, to work on a plan to redevelop the YMCA property. So what that means basically is that the YMCA will be refreshing, updating some of their properties on this land, and then Church of the Resurrection will also be developing a portion of the property for our facilities, so things like a sanctuary, parish hall, those kinds of things. And then we'll also be working together on some shared resources, such as parking, water retention pond, utility infrastructure, those kind of things that we can share. It's a really great cost benefit for both organizations. So that's a quick kind of overview recap of where we are. And then I'm going to give an update on kind of what's been happening recently. But before we do that, I wanted to introduce the building project team. We are really fortunate at Church of Resurrection to have some very talented individuals who have just the right kind of professional expertise to help us with this project. And so wanted to introduce them. You'll see the names on the screen. I think a few are out of town and not here today, but for those that are here, I'd ask if you would just kind of stand and wave your hand so people can see who you are. First we have First we have Logan Adcock. Logan is a construction attorney. Vicki Gunning, she's not here today, but she is a commercial real estate attorney. I think most of you know Vicki. John Malden, who just spoke, is a corporate banker and has been very good at assisting with financial matters and other things. Dean Moyer in the back on church staff is obviously providing, church leadership. Father David Smith, church leadership as well. I don't believe David Stalker's here, but many of you know David. He's an extremely talented architect and has dedicated a significant amount of his time to assist with planning. And then also Steve Westbrook, who I don't believe I saw, but Steve leads a construction company that has a lot of experience with these types of building projects. So super fortunate, as you can see, such a talented list of people with a lot of professional skills. So appreciate all the time and effort that they've put into working on this project. So next I'll get into a few of the action items that we've recently completed. You'll see them on the screen here. The first one, John just spoke a little bit about, but we did close on the sale of the Church of Shady Oaks property in January, which has really allowed us to kind of switch our focus more to the partnership with the YMCA now and move forward on that. We've also established a monthly meeting with the leaders from the YMCA so that we can facilitate joint planning. Of course, working with them is very crucial, so we're meeting on a monthly basis, sometimes a little more if necessary, to start working out some of the details. And then we have completed a site survey of this YMCA property, so of course we have to know all of the technical bounds and details and boundaries of everything so that we can kind of figure out, what buildings are going to go where. So that survey's been completed. As far as things that are currently in progress, so we've been working on establishing some project sub-teams. So this will be things like building design sub-team, communication sub-team, capital campaign sub-team. As we get further into the process, there may be some opportunities for some of you all to join some of those sub-teams to really help us with the planning. So we've been working on that. We've also been working on drafting legal documents that we're going to be reviewing with the YMCA. So Vicki Gunning, who's a commercial real estate attorney, has really taken the lead on that. Logan as well, who's a construction attorney, has been assisting. So that's in progress. We also have our building design subcommittee that's working on researching just design considerations. So you have to think of things such as, with our new buildings, what are the needs in the community that we're trying to meet? What kind of future growth does the church expect? What are the needs of the church? So all of those things are currently being researched, considered, and will come into play as the design of the church, the new church buildings, take shape. Of course, all of these activities, we're regularly providing updates to our church leadership council. Of course, John Malden is on the leadership council and on this project team, so he's kind of our liaison to make sure that all of those updates are getting back to the leadership council, that we're getting their guidance and direction as needed. And then last bullet on the slide is that just the key area of focus on the coming months is really that we're just going to have to be working with the YMCA to kind of come to agreements on which buildings go where, what's the timeline, that kind of thing. So that will be what we're focusing on in the next couple of months. The project team does meet twice a month on Wednesdays, which we'll continue to do. We have committed that we're going to provide the church regular updates. So, whether that's in the service or in writing, you'll be hearing from us regularly as things move forward. But in the interim, if you have questions, you can reach out to me or any member of the project team. My email address is, I think, in your program, so feel free to email me or just grab me after the service as well. And I think that's about it. Certainly, we appreciate and welcome your prayers. This is a long and complicated process, but appreciate all of the support as we move forward. So that's our property update for today, and I believe Ryan is up next with the mission update. Thank you.
Well, I found out about 3 minutes before the service that I have 3 minutes to go through mission, so I think I prepped for about 20, so we'll keep it short. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Ryan Perkins, and my wife and I have been members at the Church of the Resurrection since 2018. We actually met working with the ministry Campus Crusade for Christ. Today it's known as Cru in Italy. Prior to that, I was in China for a couple years, and missions is something that is dear to my heart, I would say. Father David did a great job kind of anchoring us in why we exist as a church. He talked about making disciples and what it looks like to be rooted, restful, and relational. And he specifically mentioned the three tables, one that has to do with communion with God, the other fellowship in Christ, and then the third table, which I'm going to share and talk about, is our faithful presence in the world. I would, if we had time, I would love to have an open mic and just hear about, from you guys, all the different ways that we are hands and feet, and whether it's, listening to a coworker and praying for them for something they're going through, or there are people in this congregation that are involved with Habitat for Humanity, building homes for families. There are people there are MESA groups that are pulling together care packages and sending them around the world. There's a lot that happens sort of in anonymity that most never hear about. And that's kind of a special thing within the Church of the Resurrection, that there is a lot of organic presence in the world. What I'm going to get into a little bit here is some of the ways that we are engaged in mission as a church, and where some of the dollars that the funding that we have designated towards missions goes to. So locally, there are ministries like Laundry Love, and my 10-year-old Bennett last night informed me that it's going to be hard to make the March 28th date that's in your bulletin, but that the next Laundry Love gathering is actually April 25th. It's the fourth Tuesday of every month, so thank you, BB, for pointing that out. But this is a ministry that we have, and that it involves supporting low-income and no-income families, in many cases single mothers, in caring for them each week or once a week and helping them with paying for laundry at a laundromat in Louisville called Coin Laundry. If this is something that you guys are interested in partaking in, I highly encourage you to reach out to Frank Green, or Candace can also provide more details on this. We are currently looking for Spanish speakers. So if you speak Spanish or want to work on your Spanish, there are a lot of opportunities with this ministry to partake in bilingual discussions. Another ministry, okay, I don't know if I can't see that far, I better turn around here. Okay, so Trinity on the Border is one that each year at Advent we send a fund to Trinity on the Border. It's actually an Anglican Church of North America ministry. Has anybody actually been down there? I'm just curious. Okay. That is something that I think probably there's many of us aren't as familiar with what is going on with that ministry, but it's something that I think in future months we need to look into potentially sending a group down there and looking at opportunities to see how we can continue to serve on the border. Salvation Army for Lunches. This is one that actually we've participated the last few years. We will do it again this summer. July 31st to August 4th, we will be packing lunches it's for kids in low-income neighborhood in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is something that we do. We'll meet at Crossroads Church. Candace is administrating this. I know a number of you are involved in this, but it's something that we've participated in the past, and we look forward to participating again this year. And if there's families that want to partake in it, this is a good opportunity in the summertime. Bring your kids along, and it's a good experience. Lastly, I'm going to mention Hope Ignited, which is a ministry that some of you may have heard of. It is a partnership that we have in Guinea, Africa, with Adam and Rachel Jameson. Brent and Peggy Durrett are serving as liaisons for that ministry. So this is something that, I don't know if you guys have, actually there's a lot of families within the church that support Hope Ignited, but it is a phenomenal holistic ministry that Adam and Rachel are spearheading with a number of other families in process of building, or actually they have finished building a pediatric center in Conakry, I believe it's Conakry, for children. It's the first of its kind in Guinea, and there's just it's one of the I think one of the most beautiful pictures of holistic ministry that I've seen in a long time. So this is something that as a leadership council, we look forward to continuing to discuss and look at opportunities to partner with organizations and more holistically provide financial support, regular communication. We want to assign liaisons that will have opportunities to engage our congregation in experiences where you can partake in those ministries in different ways. And so this is something that as we transition, we will continue to prayerfully look for opportunities to do so. So lastly, I just want to say this, and kind of going full circle here back to faithful presence in the world. I'm going to challenge us as a congregation to think through in your own lives who the pastor or the family member or the friend was that faithful presence in your life that first shared the gospel with you, that stepped into your life in a time when you needed somebody to come alongside you, and pray for them this week. Think about them. If you think about it, send them a note, thank them. But it's just kind of full circle. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or anybody on the leadership team for further discussion. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeremy Hansen. I'm the senior lay leader for Leadership Council this year. And my wife Stephanie and I have been going to Church of the Resurrection since 2016, which according to David's comments this morning makes us old timers. I was surprised to hear that. So now I'm senior lay leader and an old timer. Very excited about both those developments. All right. I was up here about a month ago, and we talked about how the council was working on two important long-term items. We're working on a diocesan discernment process and a rector discernment process. And I have an update to share on both those items. So last time, just a little background, I shared that the Church of the Resurrection is currently in a diocese called the International Diocese, which is led by Bishop Bill Atwood. And it includes 14 churches that are located all throughout the country. Bishop Bill has announced that he's retiring around the middle of next year. And the College of Bishops, which is our national governing board, has instructed the leadership councils of all international diocese churches to go through a discernment process on whether to remain in the international diocese or move to a new diocese after Bishop Bill retires. So while Church of the Resurrection has been blessed to be a member of the International Diocese over the past 10 plus years, the Leadership Council has discerned that we're called to apply to join the Diocese of Christ Our Hope with an effective date of June of 2024. We're going to be working through the Diocese of Christ Our Hope's application process over the next several months. Bishop Bill is fully supportive of this move, and we're committed to remain in the International Diocese and under his leadership until his retirement in the middle of next year. We're also working to become an official member of the Mission Network that's being sponsored by the Diocese of Christ Our Hope. So the Mission Network is a group of churches in the DFW area that's working to develop a new geographically based diocese for Anglican parishes in North Texas and in the surrounding regions. The process of making a new diocese, I do not understand all the steps involved, but I'm told it's very long and that the Mission Network is in its early stages. But the work of the Mission Network and the potential of a future North Texas diocese is one of the key reasons that we're so excited about joining the Diocese of Christ Our Hope. We're also really excited about the fact that Bishop Alan Hawkins from the Diocese of Christ Our Hope has offered to support us with our rector discernment process. So based on guidance from both him and from Bishop Bill, the council's developed an outline for how we want the rector search process to go. And I know there's a lot of text up there, so I'll run through a couple of the highlights. We're going to have a 7-member rector search team. One person is going to be from the council. The other 6 people are going to be from the parish. So we've selected our council member. It's Brenda Gribben, who's right over there waving. And we need 6 more people. So the 6 additional members are going to be nominated by the parish, by you all. And their job is going to be to develop the interview questions, conduct the interviews with candidates, evaluate the candidates, and then recommend finalists to the leadership council. And then once the search team has made those recommendations, the council is going to choose our new permanent rector from among those finalists. So if you know someone who's wise, prayerful, collaborative, and willing to serve, please consider nominating them for the rector search team. We have paper copies of nomination forms available in the back or by talking to Candace. And then we'll also have an electronic copy of a nomination form available in the parish newsletter that goes out this week. The nominees are going to need to complete a brief online questionnaire, and they'll get a follow-up call from a council member who will walk them through the duties and responsibilities of the position. The council is going to select the search team members during our May meeting and announce the members of the search team to the parish in mid to late May. It might not really seem like it, but we are trying to move quickly on this. So the nominations are due in 2 weeks on April 30th. So please be in prayer for who you can nominate, for the work of the rector search team, and for the future of our church. And please get some nominations in. That's everything I have. Thanks for your time and attention. I'll turn it back over to Father David.